Hi everybody, how are you? I hope you're doing well. How was the weather? How is your job? How are the kids? How are the pets? How's life in general? How's your health? I hope it's well. I hope you're doing well. We've had a little bit of time off because from this, just because there's been a lot going on at work. I sew for production, in case you guys didn't know that. So this is not my job, this is my fun. And so for my job, we have several different types of things we sew. Some are easier, some are harder. We've had a lot of the harder. And so the last couple weekends, my hands just needed a break. And then this last weekend, we actually had overtime. So it was 50 hours of sewing for production. And so yeah, it was crazy. But today I had some time and I thought, well, I'll go ahead and say hello. I need to give you some news. And then I want to work on our jacket. Because we got all the pieces put together as far as the color blocking, but now we have to put together the jacket. So that's what I want to start. The big news is I will be at, and I'll put a picture of the Pacific Northwest Doll Artist Expo. A lot of people also call it the Pacific Northwest BJD Expo. That will be in Portland. I've never done this show before, and so I'm excited to do this. I posted on Facebook and Instagram. I was doing some little goodies for the goodie bags, so I hope those things will be helpful and fun for anyone who wants to come. You'll have to go on the website for all the prices and stuff because I don't know. I didn't get a ticket to the event. I just have a vendor table. It's quite a lot to invest in the table, and then I'll let you in on a secret. I'm not 29. So I just didn't want to have to drive from where I live to Portland 2 days in a row and have to pack everything up and set everything up. So my daughter's going to be helping me, and we did get a room at the hotel, so I don't have to drive 2 days in a row all the way there. So because of the cost of the table and then the hotel room, I just had to kind of stop there, and we'll see how it goes. So I will have all my doll clothing. I'll have some dolls for sale. I'll have at least one doll trunk for sale. It works pretty much for MSD or just clothing. And then it's not tall enough to hold a third scale BJD is what I'm saying. And so I'll have a bunch of stuff there for sale, and I'll be able to say hi and meet anybody who wants to come by the table. So that will be my fun, is to meet all you guys who want to come. So on the website, you can find out like the actual event ticket costs and all that stuff, because I don't know what they are, because I'm just doing the vendor table. So I will be doing that. I also have feelers out for a vendor table at Resin Rose BJD show, but that one I'm on a waiting list. So I don't know yet if I'll be able to do that show. It'll just depend on if they have space available. So I'm still waiting on that. So I'm not sure there yet. And then the Wagon Wheel Doller Show, that will be the fall show. They will no longer be at the Polk County Fairgrounds. It's going to be moving to Albany, Oregon. And so I still have to get information on that, but I will probably do that show. I usually try to do that one. I just couldn't do the last one because we were in Texas, and we just had gotten back like one day before, and it just wasn't feasible for me to try to get back from that trip and then get organized and get ready for a show. So I missed the last one, but I will do the one this fall in Albany for the Wagon Wheel Dollars. So those are the 3 shows coming up. I did the Queen of the Doll Aisle show once. It wasn't a real profitable show for me on that one. And because it's all the way up in Portland, and it is kind of a more expensive table than just the other one that I do, it just has to be that way. When you have it at a hotel, it's going to be higher costs, and I get that. But if I don't sell anything, then I can't justify to keep doing that show. So we'll see how the BJD specific shows go, and if they give a good result for me. So anyway, that's the news. That's kind of where I am. Pretty transparent. It is what it is. And so if you are planning on attending those things, then I will be able to see you there. And so yeah, so that's what's coming up. And I will have, you know, all my clothing items I'll bring, and then a few dolls and some items other than that. So anyway, so that's the news, what's coming up, and where I will be. And I just thought I'd fill you in before we get started on our coat project. For any who are coming in who maybe didn't watch the other project, what we're putting together is a ball jointed doll male suit, and we have color blocked some pieces, so they're going to look like this is a sleeve. And so we have done color blocking and applique onto the sleeves. So this is the sleeve. Here is the jacket front pieces. There we go. And then the jacket back will look like this. And there is a kick pleat or seat pleat. I guess you wouldn't kick that high up on your jacket, would you? So then this is the back of the suit coat. So this is what the coat fabric will look like. It's kind of inspired by this. One of my favorite looks for one of our BTS guys. And I just love the suit. So that's what we're making. And so we'll switch up the camera and get started at putting this together. Our first steps that are going to be our normal prep sewing, as we've come to call it on the channel here, is to sew the collar together, right sides together, and it has the interfacing ironed on. And for a lot of that, you can watch the previous video for getting everything ready. And so we're just going to sew up one side across the top, down the other side. Then I'll trim the seam allowances, flip it right side out and press it, and then stay stitch along the bottom, and then snip to the seam line on the bottom to make it easier to place into the neck opening of the jacket. Then we have our facing pieces. So we're going to put these together at the shoulder. Now when you're putting together the facing pieces, they will end up looking like so. There we go. And then once they're sewn together, this is the neck opening. This is the front edge of the jacket, and then this edge is going to be inside the coat. So I'm going to serge or use the overlock machine to go around this edge and finish this edge of the fabric. And if you have a zigzag that you like to use to finish off the edge of a piece of fabric, you can do that as well. So we'll get that put together and serge the edges so it's ready to put into the jacket. So that's the facing. Then on the jacket itself, we will be taking the back of the jacket and then the front pieces, and we'll be putting that together at the shoulders first. With right sides together, we'll be doing the shoulders first. So once the shoulders are done, I will press those seam allowances open because when the jacket is finished, they will be hidden underneath the facing and they won't be seen anyway. Now a lot of this to reduce bulk, and because it has iron-on facing already attached to the fabric, I don't think I'm going to try to serge or overlock the edges of these color blocked pieces. Because the interfacing has an iron-on adhesive as part of the facing, it's going to reduce the amount of fray. And so I think I'm going to leave it as it is just to reduce bulk in the jacket, because with doll clothing especially, anything you add, if it's a layer of fabric, a layer of interfacing, a layer of stitching, every little bit is going to add bulk. So because it's doll clothing on a lot smaller scale, then I'm not going to do that since I don't really need it due to the fusible interfacing. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the shoulders. I'm not going to worry about any of these color block pieces, except I did this seam because I had to open the seam. So there we go. So that's what I'm going to do there. The sleeves have already been hemmed on the edge. So I'm going to do some basting, 2 rows of basting stitches across the top of the sleeve so that I can do a slight gather and then kind of straighten it back out, but it'll give me ease stitching to help it fit into the opening where the armholes are. So that's what I'm going to do first, and when we get those pieces all put together, then we'll come and take a look at them and then look at our next step. The sleeves now have the basting, and as you can tell, I've kind of gathered that, and I will be straightening that out as I fit it in, but that ease stitching just helps it to get into place a little bit easier with less chance of having like big pleats. You might have a little bit of pucker up at the top of the shoulder, but it fits in there a lot easier by doing that basting. Then we have the body of the jacket put together at the shoulders, and around the neckline I have clipped, let's see if we can get this to show before I drop everything off the table here. I've clipped around the neckline just so that we can have an easier time getting the collar and the facing in. If you're familiar with the channel, you've probably heard me say this a lot of times, but it's easier if when you're sewing, you can kind of fool your machine to think you're just sewing a straight line. So that way things can feed into the machine easier if you, instead of trying to sew around a curve, you make it so that you can adjust your fabric so that what's going into the machine is more of a straight line, and that will make things go through the machine a lot easier with less chance of pleats that you don't want. So I've clipped the edge of the neckline on both the jacket and the facing, as well as on the edge of that collar that's going to go in there. So in order to put these pieces together, what we're going to do is I have notched the center back of all 3 assemblies, and so I'm going to line up the notch in the center back and then pin the collar on from the center, working outwards to the front edges of the jacket. Then once I have that pinned, I'm going to measure from the edge of the collar to the edge of the jacket just to make sure that it's the same on both sides. So I'm going to pin that in place, and then I'm going to baste the collar in just because this facing is so flimsy. A lot of times I'll do all 3 layers at once, but because this is real floppy fabric, real soft, it has beautiful drape, I'm not going to try to do all 3 pieces at once. So I'm going to baste the collar into place once I have that all centered, and then to put the facing in, I'm going to have the collar will be sandwiched between the right side of the coat and the right side of the facing. So the right side of the facing, once the collar is basted around the neckline, then the facing will lay in place around that neckline as well, and then onto the front pieces of the jacket. Then once that's pinned in place, I'm going to sew from down at the bottom across like what would be the hemline. I'm going to go up the front on one side, around the neckline, down the front of the other side, and then across the bottom edge that would be also a hemline. So that way when I flip it right side out, this edge is naturally going to turn under. So I'm going to get all of that in place, and then we'll take a look at it, and then it will be time to put in the sleeves. And here we have the main body of the jacket that's all put together, and we have the little faux pockets on the front, and then the facing has been added to the inside, and this is what our collar turned out once we got everything in. And by putting those little snips into the seam allowance, we're able to kind of get that through the machine as a straight line with no pleats. There's a little bit of a pucker here, but it's going to be fine. So, and right now I just have the facing pinned in place where it will be on the shoulder, just to help it stay inside, laying the way it will once the jacket is complete. Another option is to put shoulder pads in when you're done, just to make the shoulders stand out a little bit. Sometimes this isn't as important in the doll clothing because their shoulders are made of resin, and and they're pretty square without shoulder pads, but if somebody wants them, then you can always add that as well. So now my next step is to go ahead and put the sleeve into the armhole of the jacket. So here again on these curves, I want to make that line seam as straight as possible. So I'm going to snip in the curves of down where it reaches towards the underarm, so that way it will open up a little bit easier when I feed that through the machine. So we're going to take our sleeves, and with right sides together, I'm going to start at the outside edge and pin the outside edge here, like so. And then this isn't necessary because I don't want that facing to get pinned into the shoulder when putting in the sleeve. I'm going to tack that in place afterwards. Then I'm going to pin the outside of the sleeve on the opposite side, keeping all my threads here where I can adjust as needed. So there we go. Oh, ouch. So I'm going to pin my finger. So now with those pinned on the outside, I'm going to work my way up towards the shoulder, kind of smoothing it out as I go, not like all the way flat, 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 but just smoothing that out and fitting it against the edge there with my raw edges together. And I'm going to work my way from each side up to the shoulder. So here we go. And if you watch me put jackets together, this is going to look very familiar to you because I kind of always do it the same way. And this time we just have a little bit more layers to deal with because of the color blocking. But we're just going to be pinning that into place, kind of smoothing out all the puckers, because those gathers are not so that I have a ruffled sleeve. It's just to help it fit into the opening because I have curves going in a couple directions. So there we go. We're going to smooth this out now. And so you can see how it's a little bit like rumply. It's not just flat, flat, as sometimes if you try to fit it in without doing this basting, sometimes you can still do it, but sometimes you end up with a pleat in a weird place. So these little basting stitches that are also used if you want to gather fabric, see how now this is going to lay flat with no real pleats, but because it's not totally flat like a piece of paper, it has some rumple there to it, like my scientific terms. Then I'm going to be able to fit that into this space with no pleats on the outside when I sew it together. So that's why I add the basting as I poke my finger again. And then we're going to come to this side And just smoothing those out so I don't have any pleats. There we go. And then that fits right up to the top of the shoulder. And now it's ready to sew in place. There, I can kind of pull that, straighten that out. And there we go. Now it's ready to sew, and I'll just keep all my threads out of the way and then trim them once it's sewn in place. So that's all I do to add a sleeve in. Of course, if I have a puff sleeve, I do the same process, but I keep a lot of the gathers up here at the top, working up towards the top so that all the puff is at the top of the shoulder when I'm doing a girl's garment that has a lot of puff, like in a puff sleeve dress or something like that. So this is the way I like to fit it in. Now I'm just going to have a nice smooth fit. I won't have any gathers at the top, but it just eases in so that it doesn't have any pleats. So I'll go ahead and sew that in. And then once the sleeve is in, my next step will be with the right sides together again. So I just wanted to show you the fabric. It looks so pretty. I'm going to, with the sleeve in place on both sides, sew from the cuff of the sleeve up to the underarm and down the side, on both sides of course, and then all I'll have to do is to hem the jacket and then put on my closures. So that's all that's left to put this jacket together. So we'll go ahead and get both sleeves in, and I'll go ahead and go up underneath the sleeve to the underarm, down the sides on both sides, get it hemmed, and then we'll take a look at the finished jacket, albeit I won't have the closures on it yet. And here is the finished jacket. I absolutely love it. It is just so fun, I think. I do still need to make the pants and the shirt, and then I think I'm going to go ahead and make a tie as well. So yeah, and I need to put the closures on, so I gotta decide what buttons I want. But here is how the jacket looks when it's finished. Here's the back. Take a look at that for a minute there. Yeah, and then the collars turn down, of course, and I haven't pressed the lapels open, but in the photo the lapels weren't drawn down really far. They're relatively short, and so I tried to emulate that. It had like a little bit of a wide collar and then short lapels, and then the collar of the shirt and the tie will fill in this area nicely. But here is the finished suit coat for our suit. And yeah, the pants and the shirt I probably won't do in a video, just because I have tons and tons and tons of videos on sewing a shirt and sewing a pair of pants, and it's going to be the same thing. So I can link those below. But this is how we did the color blocking on the jacket and how it turns out, and I am very tickled with the results. So there we go. There is sewing the Louis Vuitton look-alike jacket to go with our suit. And then when I get everything done, I'll go ahead and in the next video post the entire outfit. But I wanted to get this finished up so we could get this ready for you. So enjoy sewing. Have a great time. The pattern is posted on my website, missysimaginings.com. It's there for you for free. So enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.